Before we get into this, if you've ever wondered what's actually happening inside a pregnant woman's belly, not the cute kicks and the baby shower stuff, but the real biological science of how a tiny human survives in complete darkness with no mouth full of food, no stomach growling, no dinner plate in sight, then you are in exactly the right place. Stay with me until the end, because what happens in the final trimester is something most adults have never heard of, and it will genuinely surprise you. Now, think about this for a second. You need food to survive. You need water. You need oxygen. Every single day, your body demands fuel just to keep your heart beating. But what about a baby? A baby that hasn't been born yet? A baby that's floating in a dark, warm sack of fluid, with no mouth chewing, no lungs breathing air, no digestive system fully working. How does that baby eat? How does it grow from something smaller than a poppy seed into a 7 or 8 pound human being in just 9 months? Where is all that energy coming from? And here's the question that should really get you thinking. What if I told you that at one point, your baby was actually drinking its own environment? That's not a metaphor. That's biology. And we're going to break down every stage of how it works. Let's start at the very beginning, because this is where things get wild immediately. The moment a sperm cell fertilizes an egg, a single cell is created. One tiny cell. And that cell starts dividing. 2 cells. 4. 8. 16. It's multiplying so fast you can barely track it. But here's what's incredible, in those very first days, there is no mother feeding this thing. There is no placenta yet. There is no umbilical cord. So how is it surviving? The answer is that it's living off the egg itself. The egg cell came packed with its own nutrient supply, a kind of biological lunchbox that the mother's body prepared months before fertilization even happened. That tiny cluster of cells is burning through those stored nutrients like a car burning the last drops of fuel in the tank. The clock is ticking. It has maybe 4 or 5 days before it runs out. So what happens when the fuel runs out? Does it die? Or does it find something new to eat? Here's what it does. It travels. That fertilized egg, now a small ball of cells called a blastocyst, moves through the fallopian tube and heads straight for the uterus. And when it arrives, it does something almost violent in its ambition. It burrows into the wall of the uterus like a seed pushing into soil. This is called implantation. And it triggers the most important construction project in the human body. The uterine wall starts building a completely new organ from scratch. An organ that didn't exist before this pregnancy. An organ that will grow, function for 9 months, and then be delivered out of the body and never used again. That organ is the placenta. And the placenta is the answer to almost everything. But before the placenta is fully built, and this takes a few weeks, the baby is eating something else entirely. Something that sounds almost too strange to be real. The uterus lining is packed with a thick, glycogen-rich secretion that scientists sometimes call uterine milk. It's not breast milk. It has nothing to do with breast milk. It's a completely different substance, produced by glands in the uterine wall specifically to feed the embryo during those early weeks before the placenta is ready. The embryo absorbs this fluid directly through its outer cells, almost like the way a sponge soaks up water. It doesn't swallow. It doesn't digest. It just absorbs. Can you picture that? A tiny cluster of cells, smaller than a grain of rice, silently feeding off the walls of the womb like it already knows exactly what it's doing. Then the placenta comes online, and everything changes. By around week 8 or 9, the placenta has grown into a remarkable disc-shaped organ attached to the wall of the uterus. On one side, it connects to the mother's blood supply. On the other side, it connects to the baby through the umbilical cord. And here is the part that most people get slightly wrong in their heads: the mother's blood and the baby's blood never actually mix. Not directly. Instead, the placenta acts like an incredibly sophisticated filter and transfer station. The mother's blood flows into tiny spaces inside the placenta, and the baby's blood vessels run right alongside those spaces, separated by just a few thin layers of cells. Nutrients and oxygen move from the mother's side to the baby's side through those cell walls, almost like they're whispering across a fence. Waste products from the baby, carbon dioxide, urea, cross back the other way and get picked up by the mother's blood to be processed and removed. So the baby isn't eating in any way you'd recognize. It's receiving a continuous, perfectly balanced delivery of glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, minerals, and oxygen, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, directly into its bloodstream. No chewing required. No digestion needed. The placenta is the kitchen, the delivery service, and the waste disposal system all in one organ. But that still leaves one enormous question unanswered. The baby is developing a stomach, intestines, a digestive system. If those organs aren't being used for food yet, what are they being used for? This is where it gets genuinely fascinating. Around week 16, something starts happening inside that amniotic sac, the fluid-filled balloon that the baby floats in. The baby starts swallowing it. The amniotic fluid. It starts drinking the liquid it lives in. And before you make a face, this is not dirty. The amniotic fluid is not wastewater. In the early stages, it's primarily fluid that comes from the mother's body, similar in composition to plasma. It's clean. It's nutrient-rich. And swallowing it serves a critical purpose. It's the baby's way of training its digestive system. The stomach needs to learn how to contract. The intestines need to learn how to move in waves. The kidneys need to process fluid and learn to produce urine. All of that practice happens through swallowing amniotic fluid. By the third trimester, a baby is swallowing somewhere between 500 milliliters and 1 liter of amniotic fluid every single day. That's up to the equivalent of 4 full cups of liquid being swallowed, processed, and then recycled back out as fetal urine, which then becomes part of the amniotic fluid again. Yes. The baby is drinking its own recycled urine. And yes, the amniotic fluid it swallows is also helping to nourish it. There are proteins and growth factors in that fluid that contribute to the development of the gut lining. The baby's digestive system is literally being built and tested at the same time using the only available materials. That is either disgusting or brilliant depending on how you look at it. But biologically, it is perfect. Now, here is the most surprising moment in this entire story. The detail that almost no one knows, and the one that stays with you. You know how newborn babies, in their first day or two of life, produce a very dark, almost black, sticky substance in their first diaper. Nurses and doctors call it meconium. Most parents assume it's just a baby's first poop, early waste from starting to digest breast milk or formula. But that's not what it is. Meconium is not from food eaten after birth. Meconium is the accumulated result of everything the baby swallowed while it was still inside the womb. Shed intestinal cells. Amniotic fluid. Mucus. Fine hairs called lanugo that covered the baby's skin and were swallowed as the baby floated and moved. Bile produced by the baby's liver. All of it was accumulating in the baby's intestines for months, being processed, being held, waiting. That first diaper is essentially the baby clearing out 9 months' worth of in-womb activity. It's the last evidence of the entire feeding system that kept the baby alive before it ever took its first breath. Think about that. The very first thing a baby's body does after being born is release the final product of a completely different way of eating, a system so sophisticated and so perfectly designed that it built an entire human being without the baby ever once sitting down for a meal. So let's bring it all together, because what we just walked through is honestly one of the most remarkable stories in the entire human body. A fertilized egg feeds itself off stored nutrients in the egg. Then it burrows into the uterine wall and absorbs uterine milk like a sponge. Then the placenta grows and delivers a constant stream of nutrients and oxygen directly into the baby's blood. Then the baby begins swallowing amniotic fluid to train its digestive system, recycle fluids, and absorb growth factors. And then, on the day it's born, it makes its very first diaper, packed with 9 months of womb life. The human body built an entire feeding system from zero, used it for 9 months, delivered a complete human being, and then shut it all down and started a completely different system the moment that baby cried for the first time. Here's the thought I want to leave you with. You went through every single one of those stages. You drank that fluid. Your placenta filtered your mother's blood millions of times to keep you alive. Your entire digestive system was built and trained in the dark, in silence, before you ever tasted a single thing in the outside world. Your body knew how to survive before it even knew it was alive. If that amazes you even a little bit, drop a comment below telling me which part of this blew your mind the most. Was it the uterine milk, the amniotic fluid drinking, or the meconium reveal? I want to know. And if you want to keep going down this rabbit hole, because there is so much more your body has done that you have absolutely no memory of, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell, because the next video is going to take you somewhere even deeper inside the human body. You don't want to miss it.